Good afternoon and welcome to Agrifood Conversations brought to you by iSelect Fund, the Van Trump Report, and the Yield Lab Institute, as well as Family Farms Group. My name is Tom Bunn, an associate on the iSelect Fund Ventures team, and I'm excited to welcome you all to today's discussion. On today's Agrifood Conversation, we are joined by Ethan Steinberg, CEO of Propagate Ventures. Propagate Ventures works with farmers and land managers to design and install tree crop systems that work in tandem with existing farm operations. Its fruit, nut, and timber tree systems complement both row crop and grazing operations, generating new economic returns, building soil health, and sequestering carbon. Each of you knows companies are more likely to succeed with the right network of customers, talent, investors, and advisors. Therefore, we have invited you to this call because you are some of the smartest, most talented people in Propagate's market. You are potential customers or users of Propagate's products and services. You've built a company similar to Propagate Ventures, or you are a sophisticated business person or agricultural professional who understands their market and the challenges and opportunities that they may face. Before we get started, we do have a quick poll question to get a better idea of who we have on the call today. Please take a few seconds to answer. Additionally, we have a few process comments before we get started. First of all, we are not soliciting investment in any way whatsoever. This presentation is to provide information to help Propagate Ventures find customers, mentors, or other strategic relationships that can help them grow their business. Secondly, you are all on mute. However, you can use the chat window to ask a question. After the formal part of the presentation, we will answer as many questions as time allows. You can also raise your hand and I can unmute you if you'd rather ask Ethan a question directly. Otherwise, feel free to type a question and I will relay the question to Ethan and we can answer it that way. Finally, this presentation is being recorded and will be available for replay sometime probably within the next 24 hours. So once it's available for replay, please feel free to share and tell your friends. So without further delay, I'm pleased to introduce Ethan Steinberg, the CEO of Propagate Ventures. Take it away, Ethan.
Great. Thanks so much, Tom. Appreciate that. Hope everyone's doing well today. I'll take a minute to walk you through Propagate Ventures and looking forward to discussing more and asking or answering any questions y'all have. With Propagate Ventures, we recognize that many of us have probably had our parents tell us that money doesn't grow on trees, and we believe that they're wrong. So as I said, I'm the CEO of Propagate, and we've sort of figured out how to make money grow on trees, if you will. Now, as many of you are probably aware, agriculture is becoming more of a discussion point as it relates to climate change. Now, we recognize that nature very much provides solutions, and it's really time to build those markets. What we're talking about is agroforestry. This is the integration of fruit, nut, and timber trees in row with an existing operation. Now, we're focused on agroforestry as we recognize that there's an opportunity there to increase profitability on farms by about 40% as we take advantage of vertical space. Now, by incorporating agroforestry on a portion of farmland in the United States, we can also mitigate a large part of our carbon emissions every year. Now, in our discussions with farmers across the country, it's been explained to us that given where returns are today on farmland around 5%, that farmers have asked us for alternatives and new crops to their existing operations. Now that looks like apples, chestnuts, or timber. And in these discussions, the farmers that we've been connecting with have explained that they struggle to get financing for agroforestry projects. And that's because there is a discussion around operational, business, and financial challenges. So with Propagate, we've solved these challenges to help make it easier for agroforestry to be implemented. Now, what we're talking about is not about forestry or R&D, we are talking about investing in trees as assets alongside commercial farmland. And as we steward capital towards these projects, we can help investors and farmers build the next generation of profitable regenerative farms. So I'll take a moment to walk you through a bit how we do that. It starts by de-risking projects. So we've made it easy to access the project development tools and economic insights that farmers need to confidently manage a project. We analyze everything from costs and revenues, yield projections, labor assumptions, and more. So this is a sort of software approach to diligence that allows us to assess opportunities more accurately than others that are in the market today. And what we do from there is we take these projects and we bundle them together to diversify crop types and geographies. Now, from here, as folks engage in these projects, we can help broker the trees and services needed for success of these projects to make sure that operations and maintenance are top of class in terms of what's going on farmland. Now, lastly, we connect with commercial buyers for the harvested produce and timber so that any investors that participate can receive their share and our farmers can participate in the profits. Now, we've expanded our operation this year into a few states, as you can see here. And we're really looking at areas around the country where agroforestry is most applicable and where there's the most economic opportunity. So as we think about how this grows over time, this map shows a little bit of what that looks like, given the folks that we're currently in conversation with around agroforestry in the United States. So our business model is to essentially sit alongside our investors and, more importantly, alongside our farmers at each step through this process as agroforestry becomes more of the discussion. So I'll take a moment here to go through some case studies of some projects we're working with to help give a little bit of an idea of what this looks like from an economic perspective and from an impact perspective as it relates to carbon, as many of the folks we work with, their goals happen to be around carbon sequestration as well. So here we have a farm, it's 125 acres in Livingston, New York. The goals of the landowner is around increasing their cash flows with tree crops and carbon sequestration. Here we have a map of this farm. So as you can see here, it's fairly diversified with new crops, which in the orange you see chestnuts, in the purple is black currants. And we also have some biodiversity species in there, which is in pink, as well as curly poplar for timber. Now, the economics of this project, so you can get an understanding of what it takes to manage this, and also point out the picture in the background is actually of a black currant and alder polyculture. Now, in that system I've just shown the map of, this alder you see would be replaced with chestnuts, but it would look similar to this on the ground. So the annual costs at maturity, you can see here on the left, and then the revenues at maturity, you can see here on the right, what this system looks like from the day-to-day operation. Now, from a carbon perspective, we're looking at about 0.5 ton per acre per year, roughly, in terms of carbon sequestration to meet some of the goals of the landowner, as well as increasing cash flow, as kind of showed what that looks like on the economics page prior to this. Now, I'll share another project that we're working on. This is a farm in Maryland, outside of DC on Chesapeake Bay, about 120 acres. They're a grass-fed beef operation, so they're looking for a few key things in terms of goals. Those are to mitigate weight loss from the heat stress that you see, increase the cash flow with timber value, and then as well as the last project, carbon sequestration. So here we have a map of this farm. You can also see where and how this farm will be designed as we implement this agroforestry system, which is mostly around timber, black locust being the crop here, which is a short rotational hardwood. Now, some of the economics of this project, you have the annual costs at maturity on the left, and then annual revenues at maturity you have on the right there. Now, again, carbon being something that was brought up as a goal of these farmers, the carbon potential of this system, you see about 4 tons per acre per year. And in the background here, you can see what this system will look like at maturity. That picture in the background. Now, this is also another picture of something that will be implemented on this farm in some of those wider, with wider alleys for them, where they'll be growing a grain in the alleys. And this is a picture in the background you can see of the black locust alley cropping, with some numbers around carbon as well. Now, that's the sort of wrap up around Propagate and what we do, how we help drive forward some of these projects and allow agroforestry to be a profitable option for the farmers we work with in their goals for what they're looking to accomplish with their land. I'm happy to answer any questions and continue the discussion.
Great. Thank you, Ethan. Really interesting stuff. Can you talk a little bit about kind of your business model and how you're finding customers? So kind of what a typical engagement looks like and what that process is like, whether it's inbound or outbound for you guys in terms of finding ideal farms and ideal farmers.
Sure. Yeah, happy to answer that. We have conversations with essentially 2 types of farmers. Now we've got the group of farmers that is sort of in the regenerative agriculture or sustainable agriculture space. Now, oftentimes our discussions there are around diversifying where their income streams are on farm. So that's very much a discussion around what crops make sense within their given operation and how we can incorporate those new crops to diversify cash flows and create some more resiliency around what's going on farm. And then there's another group of farmers that we often connect with the example I shared about the farm in Maryland is a good example of this group. Farmers that are looking to essentially increase their margins and their core crop within their existing operation, or perhaps find different ways to avoid costs with their current operating expenses. Now, this group in Maryland that I mentioned, I'll kind of stay on the point there with them as an example. They see a lot of weight loss with their cattle in the hot months of the summer. And so that shade that's provided from the silvopasture system essentially increases weight gain with the cattle as they're grazing longer in the understory, which we see about a 60% increase, 60, in those really hot months in the summer. I think August, for example, and what that looks like. And that's really where those conversations happen around the opportunity that agroforestry might provide to support the goals of the farmers we work with.
Got it. Thanks. And so can you talk a little bit about your business model and kind of a typical term for how long you guys work with a farmer from kind of soup to nuts, if you will, or genesis to planted trees?
Sure. And I've got my colleague Jeremy on the phone as well. I'll let him answer this one if he's up for it. Jeremy, do you mind sharing?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Awesome. All right. So soup to nuts, the business model really begins at the analysis phase. So we do kind of a micro level analysis of the farm. We've built a software tool. I think Ethan ran you through that a bit, that enables us to kind of understand the dynamics of what it takes to integrate certain tree systems on the farm. A kind of a key part to that is also matching the right fit tree systems with the farm's context. So whether it be a grain grower, or it be a grass-fed beef producer, or a vegetable crop producer, matching kind of their existing production systems with their context. So how many laborers they want to be able to manage or not manage to find the right tree that fits their system. That analysis, it usually runs about 3 to 6 months, depending on the size, scale, complexity of the operation. And then post-analysis, after we kind of run through that process, that's kind of the first step with us. There's 2 programs for actually moving past that analysis phase to put trees in the ground and manage those. We actually, once you get beyond that analysis phase, it flows into a program where we help farms that are looking to actually buy those trees, implement, kind of get all the project development tools in place, whether it be the right genetic stock required, or the right activities and modules across, being able to know how to manage that system from agronomic perspective in place, so that way they can just pull the trigger and start planting the trees. That can be a deployment that happens in year 1, or it can be a deployment that happens in multiple years. So you can deploy across the entire plan of that analysis over the time horizon that meets cash flows. And then beyond that point, we have services that are provided for actually the offtake side of that process, which I think Ethan talked about earlier on the call. Beyond that, one of the kind of key differentiation points for us is we actually can be a partner in the farms. So part of what we do also is potentially provide the catalytic capital in place to make sure that these tree systems get funded. So in certain scenarios where the farm is interested in us being a partner, we can work with them to actually bring investors to the table to make sure that those tree systems get financed separately from what they're already doing. And happy to talk a bit more about that as well. But in that model specifically, where we make our money is kind of right alongside the farmer in a % of the revenue coming off of those crops as well. So we're incentivized with it.
Got it. And so what's the traction right now? How many farms are you on, and what's the average size farm?
Sure. Yeah, so we have about 12 projects operating right now. And if you remember that map that we shared of the dots coming across, those red dots are the projects we're working with at the moment, or customers we have. So 12 projects, which is across a few states in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. I'm sorry, what was the second half of that question?
Wondering about typical farm size.
Got it. Yeah, what we're seeing right now, and then given where we are operating in the country, the typical farm size probably ranges around 150 to 200 acres. Now, that of course changes as we look at different geographies around the country, where farm acreage is a little bit different than it is in the Northeast.
Got it. Thank you. Looks like we have a couple attendee questions. David Ruby asks, if the farmers are cropping underneath the trees, does contamination of the grain become an issue? Secondly, do the trees limit the kinds of chemicals and sprays that can be used on crops?
No, not at all. So depending on the crop that they're growing in the alleys, the management system that is kind of their traditional management system that they've been used to is totally viable with an integration. It just means that from a production perspective, we're looking to kind of gear the management of the trees to the types of production systems that they're already doing. So whatever their inputs are currently, we can match those on the tree side. And in terms of concerns around kind of the grain side of things, it really depends on the year that you're talking about. So, and the spacing. So at 120 foot wide spacing, you have enough sunlight between those rows where you're not going to impact yield at all of those grains across the lifetime of the system. And you won't really see any increased moisture levels in those alleys. As you start to get more compact, you start to see increased moisture levels that might impact certain grains and certain crops. So depending on the farm, it's a little bit of a nuanced equation as to what is the right fit spacing given the goals of that farm. In certain crop types, that might not make as much of an impact. Things like a winter wheat can gain a benefit from certain spacing versus a corn from a wider spacing as a result of needing more light throughout the year.
Great, thank you. Cody Ryan asks, are you able to monetize the carbon sequestered?
Sure. The nice thing about trees is it's fairly straightforward to measure what's going on there. As you can see, you can see the trees. So the short answer is yes. And we have a few partners we work with who monetize some of those ecosystem services. Now it's not our core focus. Our core focus is really going to be around delivering the economic impact of an agroforestry system as it relates to the profitability around the harvested produce and timber. Now, where there are options for carbon or nitrogen or phosphorus runoff, those markets are all sort of in process and developing. As those come to fruition, it's sort of icing on the cake.
Great. Any other questions from the audience? Great. Well, in the meantime, if there are any other questions, they might be trickling in. But the guys from Propagate, where can everyone find you if they'd like to continue the dialogue or ask you guys some questions?
Yeah, definitely. You can find us on any of the social media channels. Our website is propagateventures.com. We also have a site that we curate news around our space, which is propagate.org. Feel free to reach out to either Jeremy or I. My email is Ethan, ETHAN, at propagateventures.com. And we're more than happy to connect, or of course, if you find us on Facebook or any of those channels, if that's your thing, then you're welcome to reach out there.
Fantastic. Well, guys, really appreciate you presenting in this webinar. Really interesting approach you guys are taking. I know it's unlike anything that I've seen. So kudos on the progress. We wish you the best of luck. Please stay in touch and let us know how things are going. And to those in attendance, thanks for joining us. Again, if you have questions for the Propagate team, it sounds like they are more than willing to continue the dialogue. And also, as a reminder, again, we host these calls every week at 3 p.m. Central. So we look forward to seeing you and talking with you on future webinars. And once again, a replay of the webinar will be emailed to you in the next 24 hours. So if you know others that may want to hear this, may want to put chestnut trees on their farm, please share liberally, and hopefully we can spread the word. So thank you all very much again, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for taking the time today, Tom, and Susan, and everyone else who's involved.
Thank you, guys. It was great. Talk to you soon.
Cheers.
Cheers.